Yeah. My name's Sam Morris. I'm the construction manager for the city of Champlin. I was one of the inspectors on the road project this year. So I'm going to start out with this meeting. Kind of just to get a recap of the project, kind of what we did, some trials and tribulations that happened through the project, and kind of, recap what they need to finish up. Then I'll hand it over to Heather Nelson, the city engineer, to go through some of the assessment information. Oh, thank you, Heather. Like I said, I'm Sam Morris, and I'll go through the project and things we did and the remaining work and show some pictures, and then I'll hand over to Heather. So this is this year's road project. It's 3.6 miles of road. It was originally constructed in 1973 through 1978, and there's about 304 benefiting properties. So this project was a full reclamation and reconstruction of the road. So we reclaimed the entire road, removed the gravel section that was there, subcut sand, and put in a 6-inch gravel section with 4.5-inch of bit. We did spot curb replacement. We realigned the intersection at Dare and West River Road for better sight lines. We did ADA ped ramp improvements on the trails. We did stormwater improvements. We added storm inlets in low areas to help take more capacity of water off the road. We did water main improvements. That was probably the biggest impact. Originally, this road project was supposed to be just bolt replacement on the gate valves in the road. Last summer, we dug 3 up to do kind of an exploratory dig to figure out, the shape and condition of the gate valve and what we're going to do with this project. And when we dug those 3 up, they were in good condition. The bolts were a little degraded, so we replaced them and backfilled it. And then on this year, we started getting into the 6- and 8-inch gate valves. They were so corroded that the holes for the bolts, we couldn't get new ones in. And instead of trying to drill them out and possibly ruining the gate valve, we decided to replace all of them. So, which led to multiple water shutdowns, as I'm sure most of you are aware of that. We did some sanitary sewer improvements. We relined some sanitary main for better flow and some backup issues that we had. And then we installed our new streetlights for our streetlight policy, and then site restoration. A couple other things that we had issues with was the class 5 gradation. When we first started reclaiming the road, it was a big machine that kind of ground up the street and mixed in with the gravel. And when we got our first gradation back, we weren't passing a class 5 gradation. We were getting too much sand, so that I don't think there was enough gravel section in there. So we had to raise the reclaimer up to ensure that we at least had some gravel to reuse for under the road. After we got about a quarter of the way through phase 1, that gravel section thickened up a bit, so we could lower it down to our 9 inches, which is what we needed to reclaim to get a good class 5 gradation to put under the road. And then when we were subcutting the sand, we ran into some organic material in some areas. It was kind of spotty, but we couldn't pass a roll test or compaction test. So essentially we had to subcut that organic material and bring in good sand to ensure we had a good base. So the reason for putting that 6-inch gravel section and the 4-inch section of bit in there is to ensure there's a good solid road that's going to last another 30+ years. And then all the improvements we did with the storm, sanitary, and water is just to project that we can, all the infrastructure that we put in is going to last another 60+. So, and then the remaining work, other than some restoration, some minor punch list stuff, XL has been notified to remove their existing lights on their poles. Once the new ones got turned on, we want to ensure the new ones were working before we told XL to remove their poles. So that should be happening here in the next week or 2, depending on their workload and schedule. So I think the next are just slides, some pictures, some before and after pictures, what the road looked like before and after. We got it working, sorry.
All right, like Sam said, my name's Heather Nelson. I'm the city engineer. So I'll go through what you guys are probably most curious to learn today or ask more questions about, and that's the project cost and then how it relates to your project assessment. So this is a total of all of the costs that we did incur on this project. We separated it out based on the improvement, because that helps us with our funding, which will be the next slide. So total street improvements is just over 3 million. Storm sewer improvements, 565,000. Sanitary sewer improvements, just over 187,000. Water main improvements, 547,000. And this one, as Sam indicated, that change that we had in the project where we shifted from just replacing the bolts on those existing gate valves to actually replacing the entire valve itself, increased that cost a little bit from what we had originally bid. And then electrical improvements, that's your street light improvement, 679,000. So the total estimated project cost at this point, because we do have a couple of items that we've kind of projected out. So I say estimated cost is just over $5 million. How that rates to funding and what pays for a project like this. These are our different city funds as well as how the assessments fit into the project funding source. So total assessments collected from benefiting property owners on this project is about 1.7 million. The capital improvement fund is really that city fund that covers the portions that aren't covered by assessments or our other funding sources, and that's 1.3 million. Our stormwater revenue fund covers the stormwater costs, that's 565,000. Sewer revenue fund and water revenue fund, again, those correlate to that sewer and water cost. And then the street light fund is the 679,000. So how that relates to your assessment, this slide, it's kind of busy, but I'll go through it. So that upper portion, that reclaim and pave cost. So when you got your assessment letter, you had, maybe I should go to this next slide first. So your assessment letter showed a reclaim and pave per unit cost of $4,560 per unit. So that is per individual single family unit. There's 303 single family residential homes on this property or on this project that were benefiting properties. And that's in the map shown on the right. That per unit cost is based on a fee schedule that we set every year. That fee schedule is adjusted year by year based on either previous project costs or inflation rates, construction inflation rates, that sort of thing. The street light per fee was $1,120 per unit. Again, every individual single family residential property is charged the same amount. So then I'll go back to the slide before, and these are looking at our total actual project costs. So how it relates to that reclaim and pave cost, that $4,560 assessment amount, the total cost for the reclaim and pave. So essentially that's the total cost. That's the total amount it costs to rebuild the street. That was just over $3 million. And then the assessments that we're bringing in to help assist and pay for that portion, that 4,560 per unit multiplied by 303 units on the benefiting properties, that's this $1.4 million. So on this little pie chart to the right, you can see the city funds cover about 54% of the reclaim and pave cost, where assessments cover about 46% of that reclaim and pave cost. And our assessment policy, as it currently sits, does allow us to assess for up to 50% of the cost. Street light, pretty similar. You can see the total cost of street lights is $679,412. The total amount brought in by assessments for that street light fee that was on your assessment roll was $339,000. So this one's a pretty even split, 50-50 city funds versus assessment costs. Other costs for the project, because as you can see, if you add up the 3 million and the 679,000, that's not adding up to our $5 million cost. So those other costs were that storm sewer, that sanitary sewer, and water cost improvements. And that was just over 1.3 million. Those costs are funded through our our city utility funds, which are supported by your monthly utility bills. So a lot of information to go through on those slides there, but really that helps explain the amount of the cost of the project and how the benefiting properties help share that cost. Additionally, there was one commercial property on this project. Commercial properties are assessed differently than single family residential home properties. A commercial property assessment rate is based on the front footage of the actual cost. When we calculated out all the costs, that was $143 per lineal foot. And that's how we estimated the cost, or that's how we came up with a cost for the assessment for the commercial property. 152 feet. So as far as your assessments go, there are two options to pay your assessment. Option number one would allow you to pay either a partial amount or the full amount of the assessment in cash or check prior to November 15th. Any amount that isn't paid would be kind of moving to option two. And option two is that assessment would be paid with your property taxes. So the city of Champlin would certify that assessment amount to Hennepin County, which would then be paid with your property taxes beginning in 2025. With that, there would be a 5% interest rate and a 5-year term for that. The first years, and just to make it a little different, that first year's interest, because the interest, or because the assessments are certified in November, that first year's of interest would include the months of November and December of 2024. Then another thing to note with the second option is if you don't pay that amount in full right away, there isn't an option to pay partially in the future. So if you were wanting to pay your assessment down in the future, you would have to pay it off fully in the future. And we do the note on the bottom, which is a little hard to see with the Zoom screen here, but we do offer senior citizen and disabled deferral assessment program. If you think you qualify for this, please contact City Hall and talk to our finance director. We also do have information for eligibility available and the application on our webpage. And then this just shows a sample. This should have been mailed to everybody. And this is a sample amortization schedule or a payment schedule. If you were to kind of go with that option two and apply it to your property taxes, this would show how much would be due each year with your property taxes over the next 5 years. There is also an appeal process that any resident would be eligible to take on if you so wish. The process does follow Minnesota state statute. A notice of objection must be presented in writing and signed by the property owner prior to the assessment hearing, which is held October 15th. Once that's sent or submitted to the city clerk or council, that notice must be then filed with the Hennepin County courts by the resident within 10 days. Then after, if that were the process, if you were to go through with that, then you would also then need to serve notice following your notice to Hennepin County back to the mayor or city clerk within 30 days. So next steps, I know that this gets complicated and we do have a time set aside after this for questions and answers. But next steps, there is the formal assessment hearing that'll be at the council meeting on October 15th. It is a Tuesday night, just to note. We typically meet on Monday nights, but that Monday is a federal holiday, so our council meeting has been shifted to Tuesday night. Then other next steps is the final, after that council meeting, that's when the assessment will become finalized and payment can be made. So we will be sending out another mailing that will just be a reiteration of the payment mailing that was already sent, but it's just kind of another communication or reminder that the payment is either due or it would be applied to your taxes. And we will be accepting payments at City Hall. You can mail your payment to City Hall or bring it to City Hall between October 16th and November 15th of this year. And then after the assessment roll has been adopted and the payment amounts have been reconciled, the final assessment amounts will be certified and filed to Hennepin County by November 30th. And then unpaid portions, again, will be paid with your property taxes starting in 2025. And with that, that really kind of concludes our presentation. So there probably are a couple of people on Zoom. I just want to check in with Stephanie really quick to see if we have any questions from people that are on Zoom. Okay. She's indicated there's no questions, so we're gonna stop the Zoom recording, and the Zoom recording will be available on the webpage for those people that weren't able to attend today.